Hello dear MPI colleagues. You're watching a video on my session for the chapter education program and it's shot on a beautiful autumn day here in Italy. The question is, are we now in a meeting together? Well, to answer that question, we have to know what a meeting really is. And that is what my session is going to be about. It's called, so what's that like, a meeting? We all work in the meetings industry, but what exactly is it that makes meetings such a unique experience, such a unique means of communication? Well, in order to understand that, we have to go inside the meeting room and see what happens there. When I look at meetings, I see 7 characteristics that make meetings into a unique experience about content. 7 characteristics that can be improved and managed in order to make meetings more memorable and more effective. 7 things that professionals in the meetings industry need to grasp if they want to fully use the potential of this means of communication. In the real presentation, participants will have 7 experiences about each of these characteristics, and together we will analyze their meaning. By the way, my name is Vijver. Originally I come from the Netherlands, but now I live in Italy, and recently I was elected VP Education for MPI's Italy chapter. So let's go for a sneak preview of the 7 inevitable characteristics of meetings. As I said, I'm in Naples, in Italy, as you can see, and I have no idea where you are. Maybe you noticed that this morning I shaved carefully, but you can't smell my aftershave. This is relevant in meetings. Maybe in a meeting you end up sitting next to somebody who's wearing a horrible perfume or next to a heavy smoker. Neuroscience teaches us that physical experience always precedes reflection. Meeting participants come with a mind and with a body, and they inevitably have a physical experience. Now, it's up to the meeting organizer to decide what experience is the most effective one. Sit and listen, or sing and dance, or experiment and reflect. The number of options to choose from is unlimited. Having a coffee here in a bar in Naples is a lot different from having it in my home country, the Netherlands. It's not just that the coffee is a lot better, the whole experience is different. And that is because there's people and people. People from different countries have different expectations and different behaviors surrounding meetings. Knowing about those differences in values and behaviors is absolutely essential to steer international meetings towards their desired goals. When you step into a church, you know immediately that you're not supposed to do a question and answer session with the speaker afterwards. And in meetings it's similar. Meetings are governed by certain conventions, and people pick up the signals that leads to the conventions. If you give them the right signals, if you give meeting participants the right signals, then they quickly internalize these conventions that make it easier to reach the objectives for the meeting. Imagine this piazza on the 31st of December. Tens of thousands of people meet here to celebrate the new year. And wouldn't it be fascinating to have a peek inside their heads and to know what they know? Meetings embody the very notion of collective intelligence. The knowledge is potentially in every participant, and there is no better way than a meeting to source the wisdom of crowds and work with it. Doing this cleverly increases the impact of meetings many times over. The building behind me is the Carlo Theatre. It's one of the most beautiful opera houses in the world. It was rebuilt in 1817 after a fire. Now, as in theatre, the relationship between meetings and the real world is peculiar. There is a difference between inside and outside. What happens during meetings inevitably has its impact somewhere else. It's as if reality is a bit warped, and good meetings play with this. In In this video, I've taken you from one place to another and you had no choice but to follow my order. You couldn't just skip a part and, like with a magazine or a newspaper, go somewhere else. It's the same for meetings. They have an inherent sequence and order. And this means that each meeting has its own timeline, its own story with its beginning and its end. And when things happen, gives a meaning to them. So, in order for the meeting to have the right impact, everything needs to happen at exactly the right moment. And finally, all those who work with meetings know that there is one huge and inevitable secret about meetings, and it's probably the reason why we all work in the meetings industry. It's that meetings can be magical. Magical like this volcano behind me. You all know that it can erupt, and you all know that someday it will, but like the magic of meetings, it can't be planned. The only thing you can do during meetings is provide participants with the ingredients they need in order to make magic happen. In closing, your chapter members with this presentation will learn 4 things. One is to gain a framework to understand the unique power of meetings as a means of communication. The second is to understand how these 7 characteristics impact the outcomes of meetings. The third is that these 7 characteristics can be influenced in order to improve the outcomes of meetings. And the fourth is to start applying these things in their professional daily life. Now, my real presentation is obviously not going to be videotaped. It's going to be face-to-face with your chapter members. It's going to be a real meeting.